Good morning. We're down here in the dugout. I'm back home after a rough Christmas in Rochester, New York, in that area where we got tons of snow and sub-freezing temperatures. And it's time to take this big bad boy and show you how I cut it up. So saves a little bit of money because you buy these really cheap at the holiday. This is a full rib, prime rib, and it is actually 19.7 pounds. The retail price on it is $247, and that comes to $12.99 a pound, or $13 a pound. We were able to buy this at our local grocery store for under $6 a pound. Now this is a Black Angus, so this is really good. So if you do the calculation, we probably bought it for about $128. This, if you had to buy them individually, steaks and prime ribs off season, they cut them, you're probably talking close to $300 in meals. If you go to a restaurant, it's going to probably cost you over $500 to have the same amount of meals that this one roast provides. So it's a little difficult if you're not used to it and you don't have a sharp knife. You have to have a sharp knife. And that's what we'll have here. And we'll get going in a little bit and show you how we prepare this in different sets of meals. We're going to have beef ribs. We're going to have ribeye steaks. We're going to have prime rib. And then we're going to have extras, meat and fat. And we can make broth out of that. And we're just going to use all the meat. We're not going to throw out one single centimeter of meat on this. So the first thing I did was I prepared my cutting board. My cutting board is a pretty big one. It's about 4 foot by 3 foot. I disinfected it. They have these disinfected wipes, after it's been oiled many times, that will kill all the bacteria, streptococcus, any flu virus, any type of virus whatsoever, up to 99%. And I always clean it before I ever cut meat on it. And I let it sit for a couple hours. I don't want any residual taste. Then I'll take a nice paper towel or a towel and water it down with water, let that sit again. So now I have an absolute sterile environment to do this meat. I also have plenty of paper towels and drop cloths and regular cloths to clean up my hands, to clean up the working area, to keep it as clean as possible. Okay, let's get started. First thing I'll do is I take a scissors. I don't want to dull my knife on the plastic if I don't have to. And I want to cut this bag off. And that, sometimes, it's great that they wrap it really tight and really good. There's no leakage, there's no bacteria getting in if you're not totally refrigerated all the time. And this is not like chicken or pork. Beef is not as contaminant as those. So literally, there's not much worry as long as it's red and looks beautiful. So now that I have that off, I'm just going to flip this over. Okay, and we'll discard this into the waste can. Wipe my hands off a little bit to get a little better grip. Now you notice we have a nice fat cap right here. We have the ribs, and they extend down and they go in a curve. Well, you can take that all off if you want, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 ribs right here, and we're going to try this because I just did it, and we're going to cut down, and there's a rib here and there's a rib here. If you can't see it, just kind of use your fingers and expose and enlarge it. And I'm going to cut down between that second rib. Now I'm going to get it to a rib here, you see? But if I just do it a little bit on the side, or a little bit on the side here, not straight down, but on a little bit of a curve, I can cut that. So I don't need a saw, a bandsaw like they do in the butcher shop. Now, what I will do with this is we're going to make Cowboy steaks. So I'm going to trim around this bone. I'm going to expose the handle for the Cowboy steak. We're going to cut this off. I'm going to trim it up really nice. I know you've seen this technique before, but I'm going to do 2 at a time. It takes a little bit of effort, patience. If you hit the bone, you just move along the other side of the bone. And we're going to expose some beautiful bone. And we cut that fat right off there. That we're not wasting. We're not going to waste that at all. We're going to use that. Okay, so now we're exposing, and we're going to get below the fat cap on this cut. Be careful of your fingers. It is sharp, 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 that knife. And I should do it this way so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Cut that off there. Come on, baby. Move my scissors out of the way. We're going to get in between here, move your knife a little bit, carve that out, move that in there, carve this out, and we'll clean that up really nice. And carve that meat out here. Isn't this fun? So we have a pretty rough idea, and we'll clean it up more once we separate these two now. So you know what a cowboy steak is. You go to a restaurant, it's $100 somewhere. $50, $60 is not uncommon to have a cowboy steak. So now I have fat here. I'm going to trim that off. I don't like all that fat on the meat. I don't think it flavors it any more than the marbling of the meat. And that's just going to peel right off of there. We're going to nicely carve that off. So I leave a little fat on, and you see a little. Now what I will do is right between that bone again, I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut these two. And we're going to trim the fat off because we just want the bone, and to trim the meat off, we just want the bone. Okay. That is a cowboy steak. Who wouldn't eat that for $100? That's a cowboy steak. Beautiful, isn't it? So we're going to set this aside because we got more steaks to cut, more prime ribs to prepare. Now, last week I did half of this into ribeye steaks. I had them cut at the butcher, and then I showed you the shrink wrap. They were bone on. I'm going to take the bone off this completely because now I'm going to have boneless steaks. Now, people say, I won't have a ribeye steak without the bone on the grill. That's the prerogative. You can do that if you'd like. But I'm going to tell you that there's a little difference. You see, when you put a steak on the grill, you put it flat, correct? The bone is over here. The bone is on one side. There's no bone here. See, the flavor's in the marbling. Look at how beautiful that marbling is. The bone is only the old-time folkers, like my grandparents and some uncles and stuff. Oh, they love to chew next to the bone. My grandmother loved chewing next to the bone. That's what a sweet meat was. But not all the meat has to taste like that. So what I do is I'm just going to cut down behind this. You have a sharp knife again. The bone is right here. The ribs are right here. Now, Craig, why are you taking off the bones? Isn't that where the flavor is? Well, the flavor is in part of the meat, yes. But have you ever had beef ribs, just like pork ribs? Man, I'm going to do beef ribs. This is all going to be one big beef rib, like we do pork ribs. But we're going to have it with chili, or we can have it with macaroni and cheese, or collard greens, anything you'd like. But you can cook them exactly the way you do spare ribs, St. Louis ribs. Little different seasoning because it is beef, but we use the same principle in ribs as we do in hot dogs. You got pork hot dogs, you got beef hot dogs, you got turkey hot dogs. These ribs, when you learn how to cook them, or if you ever just cook them, they are absolutely fantastic. So let's continue cutting. And now what we have to do is we just separate this a little bit, and we're going to take the knife this way. Okay, you can see it's curved, and we're going to go follow the bones. And you could just follow the bones. And this is a razor sharp knife, so you can see it's going to come off nice. Nicey, nicey, nicey. Now, if the meat is a little chilly, like this is, because I wanted to keep it right from the refrigerator, it's only been out of the refrigerator, maybe 10 minutes. The optical, it's out about half hour to an hour and a half. And at room temperature, and it makes it a little easier to cut, especially if you don't have a really sharp knife. And like this one, this knife actually is a thin turf knife where I can actually move it. It bends a little bit. So I can just open it up and see if I'm getting all the meat. Ah, there's a piece I missed. Okay. You're getting your hands dirty, but boy, that's a good dirt. So we're just going to slice this bone right off. Ah. Okay. That's the rib. So you can see the rib, and look at the fat and the meat. The marbling is just absolutely wonderful. I'm going to stick it on right there. We're going to leave that there. Now, we have a little trimming up to do here, but that all goes into stock later, so we're not wasting it. I'm going to take a little more fat off. I want to see if there's any bone here. Nope, there's no bone there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the fat on because I can trim it off individually. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1 inch steaks. So we're just, all you have to do is cut that through. Look at that. Look at that steak. That's a 1 inch, 1.5, 1.25. Okay, now you can do them thinner if you want. But if you're going to have prime rib, and you're going to make it into ribeye steaks, thickness is more flavorful. Okay? If they're too thin, they cook too fast. You get that charred broil. I like them. You can see the difference in the thickness. I'm going to cook them all different thicknesses. Now, this isn't for one person. Well, it can be if you really are like a massive guy. But I can cut this in half after I cook it. And there's a meal for 2 people here. And that's what I try to do. Because I'm going to vacuum seal this and put these in the freezer. I'm going to trim all this fat off first. And then when it's just the 2 of us. So there's 4 meals right there. And let's do another one. Now I'm taking you through this tiresome step because I want to show you what you can do with all the meat. Now, say I want to do a prime rib. Now, we usually don't do prime ribs after the first of the year until like Christmas, Thanksgiving. But why? Well, we have nice summers here. We do this. This is basically our prime rib. But if you wanted to, you could take this and cut it right here. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this right here. That's about 4 inches. When I want to have a prime rib dinner, that's what I'm going to stick in the oven. At 220 degrees until it gets to 120 inside. Let it rest. Blast it at 500 for about 5-10 minutes after it rests for 20 minutes. And I got a beautiful prime rib dinner. Now I have this baby here, and I kind of cooked it. Cut it a little cockeyed a little bit so we can just straighten that out. Now, do we have to have this for a steak? Sure. Now what I do is a piece of meat that I didn't cut straight. I've got a little piece of ribeye steak. And that fits perfect for 1 person. Now I have another piece. What am I going to do with that one? I have 2 prime ribs now. So when I have a guest over, maybe in the spring or in the fall, and to try to, have a great meal, I'll have 2 prime ribs for 3 to 4 to 5 people right here. This will feed about 4 people. This will feed at least 3 people. 4 people, if you're not into a lot of beef. But that's how you cut the meat. Now, on the next step, I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to get this all cleaned up. I'm going to get all the fat taken off like I did this little guy here. Just cut the fat off. And then I'm going to vacuum seal them. And I'm going to show you how we vacuum seal them and keep them up to a year in the freezer. Oh, I forgot to say one thing. Make sure when you do this Cowboy steak that someone's going to eat it. Because that's about a 3-pound piece of meat. But that's going to look really impressive on your grill. We'll do videos of that later, next spring, next summer when we actually cook that. I may cut a little more of this off to make it a little less, trim it all up, and then I can use the leftover meat into my soups, into my stocks, into my au jus. I can use it many, many different ways. We'll see in a little bit. To spare you the details of doing all the vacuum sealing of every piece of meat, I have ones I've just put in the bag here, and I'll just demonstrate one and then you'll see that it's just the same process over and over and over again. The green bags are a smaller size than the blue bags. So the blue bags are a 10 by 9 bag, vacuum sealed bag. You can buy them online. And we're going to stick the prime rib in here. So we're going to get all the way down to the bottom. Okay, now here is a Ziploc, but it's really, really strong Ziploc. Nothing like the commercial ones you buy in the grocery stores. These are all commercially bought for the Sue machine or any type of vacuum sealing. And one thing we have to make sure we do is get that really tight. Now you can see all the air in here. It's all full of air. This little machine, that little son of a gun, we're going to put it on a valve that's on the other side of the bag, and we'll just keep sucking the air out. And sometimes you got to put a towel under it so it doesn't get really flat against the surface. And here we go. I hope you can hear it. Let me be quiet. Hear it? See it? Okay, so she's vacuum sealed. Isn't that beautiful? Now, the only other thing you have to do is just clean the outside. You fold this over, and you'll put it in the freezer, and it'll last up to a year. If you never open the door, it basically lasts indefinitely because there's no air in here, and it's cold. So that's how we do the old 2 rib or so prime rib. And you can see we have the, let's do this one. This is my Cowboy steak. I'm dressed in cowboy attire. See my little ladle there? That's from Oklahoma. Okay, so we got the back of the scissors or any small thing you can use. And we're going to make sure that Ziploc. If you don't, you're never going to vacuum out the air because you don't have a complete seal. You can test it with your finger if you see any bumps. Nope, no bumps. Here we go. Let's see if this one goes just as smoothly. Nope, got to put a towel under it. It's creating too much of a friction with the table. There we go. There we go. Just enough air between the bottom half of the bag and the top half, putting that towel there, and you'll vacuum seal it. You'll know it's vacuum sealed when no more air comes out and it's tight. And look at that Tomahawk steak or Cowboy steak. Okay, that's the portion of the vacuum sealing. Now I'm sure you don't want me to just walk you over and put it in the freezer, but all this is going to go vacuum sealed. Even these pieces. Look at these pieces. I'm not even going to cut them up. I'm going to put them in the bag. I'm going to freeze them over. And then when I want to make my stock, when I want to make my gravy, when I want to make my au juice, I'm going to put these in fat and all. Now, after I cook it for a good 8 hours in a slow cooker, I'll let it cool, get it really cool, and skim the fat off. And even though most of it's going to be fat, the flavor from that fat that's in a little bit of meat and the beef stock is outrageous, and it's out of this world. All right, this is this portion of how to master the slaughtering, not the slaughtering, but the butchering of a big piece of prime rib steak.